I stand on integrity, and I will do what I said to do. Because when a person gets elected to office, you're not just electing a person, you're voting for a vision. And removal of the park fees to increase the quality of life for the citizens that really live here for this great outdoors, that is consistent and that is significant. So yes, I'm happy that we have the ability to do so, and it's time. Several individuals have said, well, it's just a campaign promise. And when you find out what the facts really are, people make uninformed campaign promises, so it's okay to back down from that. And in reality, what they're really saying is that you're saying something like a gimmick or like a trick to get elected, and that's really the farthest thing from the way it ought to work. Now that we have the facts, now that we can see, is this possible? Not only is it possible, but it is the right thing to do. To restore the free use of our parks to those citizens that many of them are having a hard time making ends meet. So they're just not going to the parks because that serves as a barrier for them. It's very important that people understand that this does not cut staff at all. This does not make any cuts. The parks will actually have better presence with staff there than they do when you collect a fee. Staff is actually going to be more effective at the park because they can pay attention to the people in the park rather than pay attention to the money. So we're actually improving the presence of park staff, so the crime actually should decrease if there be any. The plan is not to cut back operation and maintenance. The plan is not to close the parks part of the season. The parks are to be open, and that's been our history of keeping them open during the daylight hours. And when that happens, you keep your bathrooms unlocked, keep your water turned on, you keep the park staff in place, and all of that is still existing. Can we afford it? Well, that's where the numbers and the graphs ought to speak for itself. So in order to answer that question, we should show where is the general fund and what is the proportion of this compared to the overall. So our general fund has $144 million in it. And that's the annual amount of expenditures, revenue and expenditures for the general fund. And if you look at the net amount of this $325,000 compared to $144 million, it's a tiny slice of the pie. Every dollar is significant. So we don't want to say, oh, it's nothing, I'm going to blow it. No, we want to make sure that we are good stewards over all of that. But still, the question is, can we afford to increase the quality of life with that price? And in this case, well, the number should speak for itself. Not all of the general fund is discretionary. In other words, there's 38 million out of the 144 that is spoken for items that we just need to have that. Yeah, but there's 106 million of that annually that is discretionary. In other words, we decide what are we going to use that for. So to scale, if you look at the park fees, it's a 0.31% of the discretionary amount, which is, less than 1%. So the significance, that's where the numbers ought to speak for itself. The third graph, we actually show the discretionary amount and the total amount, and you'll see that on the top there's a tiny little slice there of red that shows this is how much gross revenue is coming from the park fees. And so the question is, can you afford it? Well, it doesn't look like it's going to be a major impact to the general fund. So what would is that manageable for us? Are we going to be financially responsible if we do that? Well, the answer is yes. It looks like we can afford this. It's not like 1/3 or 1/2 or 10%. It's less than 1% of the budget. So the argument that we can't afford it financially, it speaks for itself. No, that's not a valid argument. Our parks are one of the best selling points for our community. They're one of the best assets for our community. The idea is to invite people to come not only visit here, and if they do visit here, then it helps our economy. Now people say, well, what about all the Oregon license plates that may come in? People from Oregon come using our parks for free. Well, keep in mind that if people are going to bring their businesses here, they're going to consider moving their family here. Likely, some of those are going to be flying into the airport, PDX, rent a car, has a license plate, most likely Oregon or some other state, and they're going to drive around, they're going to scout, and hopefully they'll come in and explore our parks. Some individuals will say, well, it's not a problem. I haven't heard anybody complain of parking fees at the park. Why would you try to solve a problem that doesn't exist? And what I think is that they're just simply not in touch, because this is a hot topic for many people. We do pay taxes to this county, and this is one of those what I consider to be a crucial service. This is a benefit. This is one way that county government can serve our citizens better. I look forward to everybody just cashing in on this benefit that we're all paying for as part of our county government.